Now, earlier this week, the National Bureau of Statistics published Nigeria's merchandise trade report for the second quarter of 2020. And this brings Nigeria's trade balance, or we saw a shortfall of 27.4% on a year-on-year basis. And this brings Nigeria's trade balance to a deficit of 1.8 trillion naira as agricultural goods export dropped by 38% compared to what we had in the first quarter of 2020, but rose 6.3% year-on-year. Superior quality raw cocoa beans has been reported as the major traded exported agricultural products. But as it appears now, Nigeria is seemingly faced with adverse weather that threatens the output of cash crop, and that means that some financial losses for farmers. But joining us here to discuss the mitigation plans of farmers is the Executive Chairman of Starling Global, Mr. Adeniji Adeyemi. Good morning, and thank you for coming on the program, Mr. Adeyemi.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, sesame seeds was about the most exported agricultural product in the first quarter of 2020, but looking at the second quarter, we saw cocoa outpacing its peers. Tell us what was responsible for that switch.
Well, cocoa is a seasonal crop. It starts September to March, and then it goes down to light crop between March and August. So the production was a bit difficult because of the climate change, and it has affected rainfall, it has affected the export, it has affected the coronavirus. Now started, there was lockdown, and that was the real hammer that hit it terribly.
So how much of a devastating impact has the coronavirus had on cocoa value chain this year?
Oh, terribly. The way it has affected all other aspects of the economy. That's how it has affected it. And it has affected farming generally, because farmers couldn't go to the farms. They couldn't take care of their farms during that period. Everybody was at home. So agricultural commodities needs to be monitored, you need to put in pesticide, you need to put fungicide to make sure that they fruit very well. So this has affected them very terribly.
But apart from the COVID-19 pandemic, what other challenges have cocoa farmers been facing?
Oh, for that one has been there for a very long time. There's never been investment in cocoa production in the last 25 years from the farmer, from the government, from every stakeholder.
And why is that?
Well, it's terrible, but it has always been there because Nigeria used to produce about 570,000 tons of cocoa in the 70s, 71 to 1980. We nosedived it to 300,000 tons in 1995, 96. Now we're on 230,000 tons a year.
Now, has it been all gloom and doom? I mean, would you say that there's been any improvement in the local processing of cocoa for finished products lately?
No. Look at processing. They process about only 10% of the cocoa production, maximum. So the major problem is we are not reinvesting. All the crops, all the trees are old, maybe 100 years, 56 years. If you go to Cross River State, the cocoa was planted in about 56 years ago by Godwin Opara. And after that, subsequent governments have never invested in it. The same thing in the Southwest. So there are so many political statements, cocoa rebirth, everybody getting involved. Government will make political statements, but it's never actualized. So the empirical evidence is the cocoa production is going down instead of it to be going up. So we have been doing it the same way, and that's why we are marching on the same spot. And it's going to continue like that, except we change the direction.
And so, talking about changing the direction now, has there been any engagement between the farmers, of this cocoa plantation and the government, looking at ways to actually boost the cocoa value chain?
Well, I think unfortunately we have political farmers. The government needs to really go back to what Chief Obafemi Awolowo did in the Southwest, what Opara did in the East. And what they did was very simple. They decided to go physical. There was Cocoa Development Unit, where there were nurseries by the government, Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Agric. They will plant cocoa between December and January in the nurseries. Then they would distribute freely to farmers. So farmers, there were quarantine, there were researches on the type of cocoa they need to plant. Then nowadays, if you go to Ivory Coast increased from 1 million tons in about 10 years ago to 2.4 million tons 10 years after. So we could do the same thing. But what you see is there will be government intervention, CBN intervention, promising we are going to put this money, but the money never go to the farmers.
How do you know that? Haven't you seen some of the farmers who have actually benefited from this government intervention?
I'm a farmer myself, and today Starling is the largest exporter of cocoa beans and cashew from Nigeria. So
are you saying you've never benefited from this?
Of course, yes. Okay, let me give you an example. Government put intervention in the rice production for Anchor Boras scheme. The price of rice was then 13,000 naira. Today is 25,000 naira per bag. So as it affected them. So the reason is the money did not get to the original farmers. So we need to change the style. Then that's the only way it can work.
Now, when you look at it now, the bulk of export transactions in the second quarter was conducted through the Apapa port. What was the infrastructure experience like within that period?
Very terrible. And I mean very terrible. Yeah, this is the first time the government is doing the road from Oshodi to Apapa. But that has created a very terrible thing and increased the cost of doing the business. Like for Starlink, we have to go on water. We have to hire batches, put your containers on them, take the risk, and at very high price. Then you are not even sure whether you are going to get in. The shipping lines are even more terrible because they are only making money. So it is an opportunity for them to do anything to businessmen. You get to the port, your container will not be picked. These are perishable items. Some containers will be there for 30, 40 days. The quality will have been bad. At the destination, most of them were rejected. So these are really affected so many people to participate in export. So the rules are not good. The infrastructure development, the deficiencies are increasing every day. Then there is terrible hand twisting of the exporters by the shipping lines. And this is where the government needs to work.
So what do you mean by that? Can you
okay. When you get to the port, you are the midst of the shipping lines and the terminal operators because they continue to increase. Don't you see the congestion at the port when they were importing? Because they will make it deliberate not to bring out your containers on time so that they can charge you more. Recently, there were protests at the port because even the importers are in trouble, not to talk about the exporters who are exporting. The roads are bad, then the batches take advantages of it. Then when you get to their ports, their terminal operators, they don't have equipment. Maybe they have 1 or 2 cranes, especially the APMT. So you have to go. The only one that is really putting effort is the Grimadi. So it's a very terrible situation. And if care is not taken, if we don't quickly address those issues, it's going to get worse. We need to open the other ports, Calabar Port, the one in Onne. We need to look at the road. The road between Onne and Calabar is very terrible. So the roads are not good. So how do we do export from it? It's easier to even come from the north, go through your SMC to Calabar, but Calabar is very shallow. It's about 5.4. So bigger vessels cannot come. The Onne that is big, the roads to Onne is very terrible. And there is Niger Delta trouble. So how do we go? So it's a bit trouble. We need to create or use the other ones that we already have and use them maximally. So MPN needs to work.
But with all of these challenges now, just before I let you go, what is your outlook for cocoa exports for the rest of the year?
Well, since it has to do with climatic conditions, if the climate is better, definitely cocoa will fruit and it will get better. But before I conclude, I think it is very important for us to grow what we want to export first. The government needs to support. The government intervention funds from CBN should be directed to like maybe Bank of Industry or Nexim. Those are the ones that are doing very well now. All this intervention will get to the real people if it is segregated and given to people that can manage it properly. Like Nexim, you don't need to know anybody. You just need to apply through your bank and you get the money. So this is the only way we can channel it to get to the real farmers, not the political farmers that have been benefiting from it for a long time.
We would like to appreciate you, the Executive Chairman of Starling Global, Mr. Adeniji Adeyemi, for coming on the program this morning.
Thank you very much.